Hi, friends. You are watching the Keto Diet Podcast. It's episode 285. Happy December. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited. It's just about Christmas. And we have a really special guest today. Her name is Dr. Jess. We're chatting all about parasites and toxins and mold and toxicity and so many fun things that not a lot of people talk about, but it's so essential to have this conversation. Now, if you have questions for me regarding this podcast or others, or there is somebody that you really want to see on the show, you can go to healthfulpursuit.com/contact and leave me a little message. I will link up again up here and down below if you want to reach out to me. Also, our sponsors today. The first one is Perfect Keto. Duh, I love these guys. They're amazing. You can find out more by going to perfectketo.com/KDP. When you use the coupon code KDP, you can get 20% off your whole order. Plus, until the end of this year, they are giving a free nut butter for orders over $80 when you use that code. So you got a couple more weeks, so cash up on it now. And last but certainly not least, our friends over at ButcherBox. You can get grass-fed, grass-finished, pasture-raised chicken and a whole bunch of other goodies by going to butcherbox.com/keto diet. And when I say grass-fed, grass-finished, it's not chicken, it's beef. Oops. So grass-fed, grass-finished beef and pasture-raised chicken and a whole bunch of other goodies. Again, it's butcherbox.com/keto diet. So I hope you really enjoy our interview today and you get to watch everything unfold. I hope you're really enjoying these videos. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you like watching these interviews? I know they're not as fancy as other interviews because I'm just one girl sitting in a bedroom recording for you. But let me know down below if you're enjoying seeing our guests. I really enjoy creating videos like this. It's so great to be back on video. And I hope you enjoy today's interview. Let's cut over to it. Hey, Dr. Jess, how are you?
Hi, Leanne. I'm great. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so glad to have you on the show. I'm new to your work and I just discovered you a couple weeks ago. You're a big deal. You're smart. I like you.
Thanks. I try and make all these really scary scientific things easy for everyone to understand. That's my goal, is that everyone can understand their body. And I often do it in a funny manner too. So I think everyone can understand if it's told to them and explained to them the right way.
You do a really good job on your Instagram. I will definitely link up to that in the show notes of today's episode because it makes it like you hear things like toxicity and pathogens and heavy metals, and like instantly, even for a nutritionist or anyone, we're like, that seems really complicated.
Exactly. And it is. I mean, it is kind of complicated, but we've made medicine much more complicated than what it has to be. Everyone gets this unique label and diagnosis, if you will, and we all think that requires a separate pill for every ill or treatment. And it really is the same type of, or handful of the same root causes. When passed through your unique DNA, they come out with a unique label. So we can go back to the basics and everyone can understand that. The things you listed are root cause.
Brilliant. And what sorts of people come into your office? Like, what is the thing that you focus on that really lights you up, that you love getting to the root to?
Honestly, I think the more difficult the patient is, the more I enjoy it, actually. Not to the patient's demise, obviously. No one likes to be a difficult patient, but I like the mysteries and I like to become a detective and um, communicate and talk with the body, if you will. And it's fun for me to troubleshoot with a person and get to know them and see where their areas of struggle might be and help bring awareness to them, because I'm really just a guide. I think their body heals everyone. We just have to communicate with it properly. And so I really love it when the Lyme patients come in, or the toxic mold patients, or even parasites. Those people end up getting all the autoimmune labels, all the chronic disease labels, and are really just given a band-aid to suppress a lot of the symptoms rather than saying, why? What is the body telling us, and why do we have this?
And you mentioned toxic mold, parasites, and I have a lot of friends who are diagnosed with an autoimmune condition and they don't have a label. What are the sort of symptoms that one would experience when they don't really know where to go and what's happening?
It's hard because a lot of Western trained medical doctors don't believe in some of these diagnoses. They definitely, I know the chronic Lyme patients definitely have a difficult time trying to find someone who will listen to them and believe them and match their energy or their zealot, their discipline to heal, if you will. And so it's difficult for these people to find someone to help them along. And really, if you want to look for signs and symptoms that something might be infested with something that doesn't belong in your body, you really want to look at the foundational pillars of health, which equal health to me. Are you sleeping properly? Can you think straight? Do you have brain fog or difficulty with clarity of thought? Do you have vertigo or feel like you just got off a boat? Do you have severe fatigue or chronic joint pains? Do you have bloating or digestive issues or chronic diarrhea, chronic constipation? These things are all warning signs that, hey, there's something going on inside the body. It's having a hard time with maybe getting a toxicity out or something that you're exposed to. It's not just in our genes. Our genes can be epigenetically changed, or the expression of those genes can be done so through the environment, which is really what we're finding out matters a whole lot. And so if you have some of those symptoms that seem to be labeling you as a mystery patient, I encourage you to look at what's inside the body that is not supposed to be there.
Brilliant. And parasites, heavy metals, Lyme, are they all kind of doing the same thing in the body, or is it all different kind of across the board?
Well, I truly believe that it's hard to separate some of these toxicities from each other. What the studies have shown is that parasites aren't really that uncommon. We deworm our dogs and our animals, but we don't think of it for ourselves. And, we estimate 60 to 70% of people have parasites. And so if that's the case, we really need to be looking into what could be causing some of these random symptoms. So when you look at parasites and heavy metals, for example, the studies have shown that parasites can actually have an affinity or eat the heavy metals, especially in animal studies such as fish. Some of the fish cestodes or parasites have many more heavy metals inside of them than what the fish body and tissue would normally let have inside of it. So when that happens, it looks like this could be maybe extrapolated to human populations too. And so effectively, since if we're to believe some of that science, I'm actually asking people to pull heavy metals and viruses when they do a parasite cleanse. So that's honestly, parasites and heavy metals are attracted to each other. Viruses can be reactivated by parasites. Mold can imbalance the immune system in one fashion so that you're more susceptible to other things like viruses and parasites. So they act as frenemies all together. These pathogens kind of add up and get on top of the immune system, so that if you're imbalanced one way, your immune system really is spinning as its wills. And I truly believe that disease is an absence of homeostasis in the body. So anytime we're away from our normal states, the way the body processes, the way it goes through reactions, the way it detoxes, if we are pulled away from that, that's when other things can get inside of us and cause problems. If you have open drainage pathways, your liver, your kidneys, your brain, everything works right, things come in and they don't stick and they come right back out. So together, all of these things happen. You get heavy metals, parasites, mold spores or mycotoxin spores, all start to stay in the body if your body is not functioning properly and cannot dump them. So yes, all of these things start to harbor, they fill up your innate toxin bucket, and they work together to use you as a host.
Open drainage pathways. Can you explain this for those that maybe don't know?
Well, I was hoping you'd ask. So, I have a lot of doctors come to me and say, how you have a liver, you have a kidneys, you have drainage pathways that work. But that's not entirely true if we think about it. We have something called fatty liver disease. You've probably heard of it. About 25% of the population is estimated to have this, and that's a stagnant liver. It's a stagnant liver drainage pathway that's caused, in the studies, by high fructose corn syrup. And chronic kidney disease That's the kidneys shutting down. That's a drainage pathway that's blocking out. When people can't sweat, they tell me this all the time, they can't sweat. That's not normal. I'm glad you guys don't want to smell, but this is a way to detox heavy metals too. It's not just to cool you off. And so if those things start to get blocked out over time, you're at a disadvantage for if we are exposed. And toxins are ubiquitous in our environment. We live in a very toxic world. So if you're not able to release what you're exposed to every day, that leads to disease. And so our drainage pathways include bile, liver, lymph, skin, brain, mitochondria, bowels, everything like that. And those are all the different ways that our body has come up with defense mechanisms to protect us. And when those start to falter, you're looking at not being able to detox properly and then needing a little TLC.
It completely makes sense. And with drainage pathways, I'm just thinking of, 15 years ago, I stopped wearing perfume and makeup and all these things because I realized how many toxins were in everything. And I was so angry, and just how much is out there. I feel like not only do you need good drainage pathways, but you also need to be removing everything. And how do you get ahead of it? So my question really is, like, does everyone need to be concerned about this?
Yes, you do. Now, I will say this with a grain of salt, and that, obviously I'm not sick. I have a genetic predisposition that lets me release toxicities pretty well. Everyone has genetic predispositions that can be good, bad, positive, negative, in our favor or not. We all have that. And it's really helpful to know what you inherited, or where you kind of can predispose, if you will. It's not a death sentence. But the thing is, if you are exposed to toxins like we all are, and you are starting to feel sick, you may want to look into your DNA. You also really want to know that things like the Tide laundry detergent, when you walk down the Target aisle, if that's bothering you, your body's reacting appropriately. That stuff's really toxic. I don't react to that stuff, but it's just as toxic for me. And so, wow, your body's smart. It's warning you because it knows. So I want people to understand that if you are having these symptoms, your body's extremely intelligent. It's never wrong. Ever, 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 ever. The world is toxic. There's nothing wrong with your body. And so, yes, this is something we all need to worry about, but it's something that's reversible for a lot of people.
I'm glad you mentioned different people having different results. My husband had really high mercury, like dangerously high, and no matter what we tried, he could not let go of it. And we realized then, after doing genetic testing, that he was one of those people that he holds on to everything. We had to take a very different approach.
Exactly. And so he's someone I would really be working with to make sure he can sweat within like 10 minutes in a sauna, make sure his bowel movements are regular and normal, not too loose, not too constipated every day, make sure his energy and brain are turned on properly, he's super witty and on like he wants to be, make sure that his bile is on, so he's not seeing undigested food in his stool or anything like that. And then lastly, a lot of people neglect the lymph or the fascia. And that's really important, looking at draining lymph nodes and getting lymph massages. Sweating helps a little bit too. All of those things, rebounding and dry brushing. All these things are really sometimes underestimated at how well they can bring you just back into homeostasis. So I hope someone is working in his liver too. Make sure his liver is open. So make sure he can handle caffeine, he can handle alcohol, he can skip meals without his blood sugars falling too much.
Yeah, we've done so much work on that over the last 8 years. It's so cool. Like all the things you're saying, it's like, yep, we did that. Yep, we did that. And it's cool that when when we were working with a doctor originally on this, it was like, take this medication for your digestion and take this medication for this, that, and the other thing. And it was like, no, like there's a root cause. And that's what I really love about your work, because you get to the root of it.
I try my best, within my power and knowledge that I've been granted this lifetime,
And so we've chatted about toxins and how they are not so awesome and how they're everywhere. But are there other causes, like as it comes to mold and parasites, that are different?
So, how you get mold and parasites, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So, yes, good question. I can tell you guys, I know the genetic predisposition for mold, and we think it's about 20 to 25% of the population. So, it's 1 in 4 people. That's quite a bit. And so, these are people that just can't release mold spores when they're exposed as well. And so, you get that from water damaged buildings most of the time. So if someone has a leak in their home, ever anything, a water heater ruptured, a toilet overflowed, it takes 24 to 48 hours for mold to grow in porous things like carpet or things underneath, floorboards, in crawl spaces. It's not always visible. And if you smell musty smell, you feel worse at home, you can't hold your urine, that's another sign of mold toxicity. Then you may want to look into, hey, is there ever been a leak in my home? Is there water damage that's hiding somewhere and I have a sensitivity? Because it actually is an immune reaction, not an allergic reaction. Lyme disease or parasites, which often run with Lyme disease. Obviously, the vector for Lyme disease is a tick, and there's a certain bacteria known as Borrelia. It's a corkscrew-shaped bacteria that lives inside or hides inside these ticks, and that they use that vector to get past to humans. I have found that Lyme isn't quite the beast that parasites are, and I can deal with it much better if mold and parasites are removed. Parasites, you can get a lot of different places. Sometimes we don't know where you get them. We think the United States has all this great food, but really we don't have great food anymore. So you really have to look out for sushi, raw food in general. If the fish isn't frozen beforehand, it is a risk. And if you let your animals kiss you in the mouth, that's another way. There are lots of different ways you can get it, even undercooked meat, walking barefoot, especially if you have a suppressed immune system or one that's imbalanced, where you're just a little more vulnerable. And then having heavy metals also makes you kind of a sitting duck if you're exposed to parasites too, since they are attracted to those heavy metals.
And there are different types of Lyme tests, right? Like
Yes.
one will say that it's negative when it's really positive. Can you go through a little bit about Lyme? Because so many people get that standard test and they're like, it's all good. And then they move on.
Yeah, it's so sad. And I wish doctors knew this more too. The standard screening test, which I think a lot of doctors will skip now, is called the ELISA. It's an acronym. And it misses, anywhere from 60 to 80% of people. It comes back with a false negative. And a lot of docs, when that comes back, they don't check the confirmatory test, which is a Western blot. There are some doctors that I'll just go to the Western blot because they realize how inaccurate the ELISA screening test is. The Western blot is still a blood test. It's still not perfect. It still misses anywhere from 20 to 40% of cases, especially depending on where you are in acute, chronic, where you are in the Lyme disease journey. The other problem I have with a lot of the blood tests is that they're not directly testing for the spirochete or the Lyme pathogen. They're testing your body's immune response, the antibody response. Are you making antibodies to this pathogen, because then we can tag it and catch it in these little bands we do. Well, the problem is that what if your immune system is so lowered, you're not actually provoking the immune response that you need for the test. A lot of these pathogens are so stealthy, they don't hide in the blood. That's why our tests are inaccurate. They hide in the lymph, and they hide in the joint fluid, and they hide in the mucous membranes and places like that. So it's really helpful if you're going to get a test to sweat and run them out of their hiding places. So we provocate them out a little bit. And even if you do that and your immune system is really lowered, is your body seeing the pathogen to make an immune response to test for? Right? And so that's my problem a lot of times with the blood test. There's one called DNA Connections. It's a urine test for about $650. And there's one, Vibrant Labs is a blood test that seems to be really good for about $400. I like it because it's so much less expensive than a lot of these tests, which run upwards of $1,500. And I just can't, it's too much for my patients to pay. So with DNA Connections and Vibrant Labs, I actually have people bind and sweat a couple days before the test so that the pathogen or spirochete can't hide in the mucous membranes or the joint fluid. It's run out in the blood, where then when you urinate for the test or get your blood drawn, it's more likely that we've provocated that pathogen out. And DNA Connections with the urine test is directly testing for the pathogen in the urine.
Brilliant. And you mentioned bind and sweat. I think there's like a 3-phased approach, kill, bind, sweat. Can you chat with us rather a little bit about that?
Yes. So this was actually an accident. I just kind of, put it up on my story. Someone was doing a protocol where you take a natural anti-herbal or a natural antibiotic. It's usually herbs, as well as, waiting about an hour afterwards, taking a binder, and then getting in a sauna or working out to elicit the sweat reaction or the sweat pathway open. And you wouldn't believe how many people this can heal, because it's not a protocol that's directed a specific pathogen or toxicity. It's actually asking the body to sweat, which releases, actually mercury is one of the heavy metals you can release a lot in sweat. And so it's asking the body to open the drainage pathway up. And when you bind things up, you're mopping up the toxicity you just may have killed with the herbal antibiotic. So you're mopping it up so people don't feel it, and you're trying to sweat it out of the body. And it just sort of caught like wildfire online, and it became my trademarked protocol at this point. And so people still tag me online and are in their saunas after taking a binder and, something like, parasite cleanse or something. So it's been wonderful to see how many people have put their awareness there and really done well with that.
Awesome. And sauna, you've mentioned this a couple times, sweating. There are a bunch of different kinds of saunas. What are your favorites? What are totally ridiculous? Don't waste your money on.
Great questions. Yeah. I will tell you what I personally have. I have the Clear Light sauna. It's, I love it. It's a low EMF sauna. It's a cedar wood one. It smells wonderful. And so I get in there and listen to audiobooks all the time. And I also really like Sunlighten, who is supposed to be low EMF too. And so the ones that, there are a lot of ones that claim low EMF or don't even talk about it. Don't bother, because a lot of that EMF, you guys, unless you bring a third party reader in there to check, that's what needs to be done. And I know it has been done in Clear Light before, which reads honestly. So that's what I would like you guys to look for, is think about the electromagnetic radiation that can come from some of these things too. And then read reviews. That's really important, to read reviews and see how people do. I actually really like the portable saunas too. I really like Therasage. I think that one runs 800 to 1,000. And that one's supposed to be low EMF too.
Awesome. Yeah, I have a little handheld Juve. I don't know how you feel about Juve, but
Yes.
oh boy, I just love traveling with that little thing, and it's really helped with, I use it specifically for my face and acne, and it is
It
just
works.
great.
That is, I think, near infrared rather than far infrared. And so it penetrates deeper into the skin. So it's more of a skin treatment, aesthetic treatment. It's really nice and lovely that way. And it turns on mitochondria.
Yes. And you did speak about mitochondria before also. What are your feelings on fasting? Does that play a role in all of this or not?
I love fasting. I actually do it quite often myself. I'll do an overnight fast and then not eat till, 11 or 12 the next day. And that's sort of what works for me. And there's a number of different ways you guys can fast. And it works. If it works for your schedule and you're not wiped out from it, go for it. Sometimes my only tidbit with fasting is if you have a lot of adrenal issues or hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis issues, careful with the fasting. But if fasting gives you energy and makes you feel good, then go for it, because what's happening is you're freeing up energy for the body to go look for pathogens or detox or digest your food better that's still in your belly maybe. So it frees up about 40% of the energy to go fight for other things in the body. And that's a great way for your body to clean up dead debris and cells that no longer serve it.
Yes, I know that probably yeah, let's say 85% of women listening to the show, we all do intermittent fasting and very comfortable with that. I'm just starting to get into more of the hardcore fasting now that my HPA access isn't a total mess. I find that I'm able to go like a good 36 to 48 hours, which is not what I could have done before when I had amenorrhea and all the things.
Amazing. That's amazing change, actually.
Yeah, huge. With health, it's like step by step and one after the other. And I think people, listening to podcasts and seeing people that quote unquote have it all together, we can be tempted to go so hard. And I really like that you mentioned the HPA access and really understanding where you're at and to not go so hard. Because if you have an issue, fasting is actually going to make it worse and you're not going to achieve anything.
Yes, you're not going to be able to hide it anywhere because food can be like kind of like a security blanket for people. So if you have a lot of stress or trauma, emotional stuff going on, adrenal stuff, it may kind of uncover things for you that aren't so pretty. I've definitely had that experience.
Oh, it's the worst. When you say not so pretty, that's like an understatement. It's like hot garbage.
Oh, it is. It is.
It's straight up. So once we're cleaning stuff up and perhaps we're working with you and, we're really starting to feel better, are we safe forever? Like, does our immune system get to a point, does our body get to a point where we're like much better off or more safeguarded? Or do we always have to kind of be on the lookout for things that could happen?
I think we're all sort of in the middle of a healing journey right now. I mean, I don't know many people that ate wonderfully when they were little and never used toxic cleaning products or makeup. I don't know those people. Like, we all did it. And so I think we're all sort of on an uphill climb to learn about our bodies and to reverse the years of damage that we've done. And once you get that awareness is there, you work and you open your drainage pathways and you use some binders and all your foundational steps of health are back in order and you're feeling more and more like the older version and healthier version of yourself. When that happens, there's an awareness there that hopefully you won't let yourself get so slowly and insidiously sick again, because you know what it feels like to feel good and then feel sick again. Some people are so sick so long, it's their new baseline and they don't remember what it is to feel well again. When you get to that point, there'll be an awareness there where you realize where your drainage pathways are being blocked off again because you've been trained to look and have an awareness you may have not had before.
It sounds a lot like, the reason why I do the work that I do is really empowering people so they understand their body so it never gets this bad again.
Be your own best doctor. That's right. I truly believe that if a doctor knows the health and the science, they should be able to explain it to a child. And then that person, you can translate that. It shouldn't be a mystery about your body and about health. It shouldn't be a big medical mystery. It's not. Anyone can understand if explained in the proper terms, in the proper words, in the proper sentences. Everyone can understand their body. And so my goal is to have you may need a guide at some point, but you'll go, wait, this isn't normal when this happens. This isn't how I should feel. I'm connected this way and I didn't have that awareness before. And that's what I want for people.
Yes, amazing. And okay, where can people find all about you? I'm going to include links to your website and to your Instagram. Tell us more about how we can work with you, all the things.
Well, it's going to make people sad when I say this, but I am moving out of one-on-one consults at this point. And it's because over the years, I've built up a year-long wait list. And although I'm helping those people really well on one-on-ones, there's so many other people that I feel like have been waiting for so long to see me. And, just need that education. They don't need to see me forever. They just need some education to understand themselves. And so because of that, I've decided to launch an app, an educational program and subscription through my website, which will be coming before the end of the year. And, it'll be really affordable for people, much less than consults. And I'm going to be on there really triaging questions, doing interactive webinars, educating, having guest vlogs and blogs, and putting out all that information that I repeat on every single consult to people. Because again, there's only a root cause number of root causes that can cause all disease and change your genes that get passed down from your grandparents. And so once you know those, you know how to be a Sherlock Holmes to go back in through your health history and unravel things and learn.
I'm so glad you're doing that. And it's something that I did with my business 3 years ago. And it's so great being able to help so many more people and empower them so much more quickly than one-on-one, which is so invaluable. But like, if you can share your message and have figured out how to share that to multiple people, you'll have such a bigger impact. And especially with your message, like so many people need to hear this. So I'm glad that you're putting that together.
Oh, thanks, Leanne. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm hoping that the message will spread and that people will feel empowered about who they are in their health.
Yes, it all comes to your intention. I can tell from our conversation. You got this. They'll totally achieve all of that.
Hey.
So we'll include links to your website. And if your program ends up being live by the time our episode goes live, I'll be sure to include that in the show notes and a way for people to get in contact with you. And thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Absolutely my pleasure. I'm honored. Thanks for having me.